You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam. Streaming on iTunes and at facebook.com/DCAU Review. Now, here's today's episode.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 13 of the DCAU Review. I'm your host, Cal. Alongside me, as always, joining me, my co-host, brother, and the guy that runs our Twitter account, my good friend Liam. Liam, welcome to episode 13 of the DCAU Review.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. We're kind of continuing with, we're continuing with Superman, but we're not doing them in exact order like we had been with Batman. We're picking some themes. Obviously, our last episode was sort of a Lex Luthor kryptonite theme. This week, we've got a bit more of a specific theme as we're talking the beginnings of Apokolips, the beginnings of the Fourth World Jack Kirby characters being introduced into Superman.
Absolutely, we're calling this episode officially Road to Apokolips, because why not? But we're going to kick it off here, Liam. We're going to start with the first episode. We got a double feature today. First episode we're going to talk about is Tools of the Trade, which is technically in the first season of Superman, the animated series. This does an interesting job of introducing, as you said, some of these Fourth World characters. In this episode specifically, we are introduced to this mysterious character, Kanto, who arrives on the scene to help out gangster Bruno Mannheim, who is the leader of a sort of an organization, a crime organization in Metropolis called Intergang. Intergang plays a kind of major role throughout Superman the Animated Series, and maybe later on I think there's some episodes of Metallo and Parasite and all that sort of are centered around Intergang itself. But yeah. Bruno Mannheim is the guy who is the... correct me if I'm wrong, but he's sort of like he's the head honcho. He's the godfather of Intergang.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the closest thing to we don't have quite as many gangster villains as we have certainly in the early going of Batman, but he's sort of the Rupert Thorne type.
He's the leader of the organized. Yes. Is the biggest organized crime ring in Metropolis.
Exactly.
They're doing a lot of heists, a lot of stuff, and this episode starts out with them bringing a tank to the Metropolis Gold Exchange. And, at this point, I guess technically this is several episodes into, I think on the DVD it's marked as like the 12th episode or 11th episode or so of Season 1. So that plenty of time that Superman's been around here, plenty of time for them to see the things that he can do, but I guess they thought maybe he was sleeping that day. I don't know. Weird decision to go in the middle of the day and try and break into a gold exchange, but they're quickly foiled by Superman, who takes apart his tank, and Mannheim, obviously frustrated, goes into his giant warehouse of weapons and starts throwing boxes of grenades around, saying that they're useless. And this mysterious character, Kanto, shows up, literally out of thin air, and starts offering him a deal, I guess, per se. A mysterious benefactor that's looking to give Mr. Mannheim some tools in order to be successful, and perhaps not only in his taking over Metropolis, but getting rid of or starting to see what the limits of Superman's powers are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that it works for a Superman plot, because generally if a villain in Gotham City has a tank, he's going to give Batman fits, right? Like, Batman doesn't have... tank missiles would hurt Batman.
Right.
So the idea that starting it out with, we're kind of jumping right into our plot, our first category that we grade on here. Yeah. You start out the episode by showing they've got lots of money. They have any type of weapon you can imagine, from serious military hardware, and Superman takes it apart in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So, setting up that they're desperate to keep this criminal enterprise alive, knowing that they can't stop him with what they've got, which makes them desperate enough to, when a guy just shows up offering them these crazy new weapons, they're very willing to just take them and really take him at his word, make a deal with the devil, so to speak, I thought that was a good point of it, was they're a bit desperate here. They know what they've got is not going to stop him.
And it's interesting that that gives a little depth to Mannheim as a character. You can tell he's been doing this for a while. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he involved in one of the Toyman episodes? I think he's involved. He's involved somehow in the creation of Toyman. We didn't review that episode yet, but I believe he was somehow involved in the destruction.
Yeah, this definitely is not the official first Mannheim episode.
But it gives him a little bit of depth. You see that he's been at this for a while. He's getting frustrated, clearly, not being able to do what he was doing before Superman arrived on the scene. And he's not dumb either, because the first question he asks after Kanto offers these unique weapons to him that are supposed to help him out are, okay, what's the catch? And Kanto makes it very clear that, well, there's no catch right now, but we'll let you know, which is interesting because we talked about before we went on the air, the dynamic of this character. Kanto is very much portrayed as a satanic devil-like character in that in the classic sense, in that you're making a deal with the devil at this point. He's going to give you what you want, but there's going to be a time where you're going to pay later on.
Yeah, and there's a nice, very subtle moment that you pointed out to me where Mannheim is doing a very grand monologue with these new weapons, and he's not just going to take over the city; he can take over the entire world. And they flash to Kanto for just like 2 seconds, and he just has this smirk on his face.
He does like the Jim Halpert, like looking at the camera, like yeah, you're going to take over the world, all right.
So I thought that was again very clever. Yes, there's always the catch when the characters in literature make a deal with a demon or a devil for especially when it comes to you make that deal for in exchange for power,
right?
But there's always someone more powerful coming to take your spot,
and there'll be some comeuppance regardless. So of course, throughout this thing, the weapons begin to work against Superman. There's also a subplot of the introduction of 2 new characters into the Superman animated series. 2 important supporting characters, that being Dan Turpin. What's his nickname? Dangerous Dan. It's not Dangerous Dan Turpin. I forget. Anyway, we'll look that up later. Anyway, the introduction of Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer, both from the Metropolis Special Crimes Unit, I think they call them, the SCU. So these 2 characters play a big role, not only in the specific Apokolips storyline coming later on, as we'll see in a couple weeks, but these are supporting characters that really play a big role in Superman and giving depth to him, much like the police do in Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
these people are going to be his allies. It's interesting to me, I thought, with the Turpin character, is he almost comes off in this episode as like a parody of Harvey Bullock. He's the grizzled veteran, and he doesn't take nonsense. He doesn't like this Superman character coming in, and the media is giving him ribbing him about how Superman is saving their bacon, and they can't even stop a jaywalker without Superman's help.
The character of Angela Chen, the news reporter, is such a GDB to Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer. She's a no good bee in this episode, and
really is
constantly just ribbing them, asking, you've got all this. The police force gets all this funding, and then you just can't. You can't even. She says, like, you can't stop a jaywalker without Superman's help,
right?
And so you really push Turpin's buttons there, and so he ends up kind of striking out on his own.
After Maggie Sawyer decides she's going to bring in Superman officially, whatever that means.
Does he get a badge? Does he get a badge?
Officially deputized Superman.
Like Adam West and Burt Ward, where their Batman and Robin were always officially deputized.
Right. Remember
lawmen? They weren't vigilantes in that show.
No. I don't know how that works, but anyway, yeah.
But yeah, so they bring Superman in officially, which sort of sets Turpin off to go. They've sort of implied he's been working a Mannheim case for a long time, and he really wants that collar for himself, and especially after people are making fun of him and sort of devaluing his own work.
Right.
He sort of strikes out on his own to try to get Superman. So I guess we can finally give our plot scores here. But it's pretty average, like you said. It's some guys get some new weapons to go fight Superman. And like you said, we have the subplot of Turpin kind of looking to find his own value, and he does in the end. Superman's being, pretty beaten up by one of the weapons, and he sort of Turpin makes the save and fights off Mannheim for a moment, allowing Superman to recover. And
Superman gives him an old attaboy in front of that GDB.
Yes. So he puts Angela Chen in her place at the end of the episode. And so I went 5 out of 10. It's pretty basic. And obviously the very end, we get our first look at Darkseid, which we'll get into in visuals and voice acting, certainly, but in more specifics. But you get your first taste of that apocalyptic world. You see Kanto transform into his Apokolips outfit out of his business suit, and you have the final reveal of Darkseid for the first time. So it's a nice little bit of, you establish what weapons they were willing to just throw away on these random Earth thugs
in order to sort of get intelligence and figure out what Superman's limits are.
Right, and you think if this is just stuff they were given to like people they thought of as ants, imagine the kind of power they must have for their actual armies.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I gave it. It's a basic plot. I'm with you. I think that it's fine. It's a good introduction to this episode. Basic. You have your basic villains. Nothing really stands out villain wise until the very end when you kind of get a tease that we'll talk about, like you said, in a second. But I gave it a 6 out of 10 for plot as well. You gave it 5. I gave it a 6. All right, moving on. Music. This will be a short category because, as we were discussing before we started to hit the record button, music is kind of MIA in this episode, from what we noticed.
Yeah, it's very dialogue heavy, and that's not necessarily to its detriment. But there really isn't a single moment, other than maybe the last little bit, as we mentioned, when Superman gives Dan his commendation and flies away, and
there's weird patriotic, bizarrely,
yes,
but not just like generic patriot music,
right? Like they didn't. It's not like God Bless America, but it's trying to invoke that type of emotion because all the reporters and Sawyer and Turpin are watching Superman flies away, and Turpin salutes him.
It's so goofy.
That again very much feels like something that you could have seen on like the George Reeves 50s Superman show, or certainly on an Adam West Batman show. But but that, other than that one little patriotic musical cue there's really nothing in this episode that I even really remember, other than hearing the classic Superman theme a couple of times. Right. So yeah, I went 2 out of 10 for music here. There's just really nothing to it.
Yeah, I hear you. I went 4 out of 10. I didn't think there was anything that was detrimental to it. And I feel like if I feel like I owe it a 5 if there's nothing, if it's just middle of the road. There wasn't any. I feel like that it could have been used in certain spots, in certain areas, maybe to enhance things. The last scene where they're in the warehouse, where Turpin's tied up and he kind of saves Superman's butt. There is a scene. There is a musical cue that happens when there's a scene where you just see Superman after he used his heat vision, and they flash to him, and he's in the shadows, and his eyes are red, and we'll get in that in visuals in a second. But it's there was a slight musical cue there. It's like it felt like it could have been more powerful because I can't even tell you what it was. Mm-hmm. But there should have been something that was like, yeah, this is awesome. It's like, whenever there's a Batman scene and that's the focus on it, and it's like, all right, here comes the hot tag, like to borrow a wrestling term.
Yes,
here comes the excitement. Here comes, all right, Batman's on his comeback or Superman's on his comeback at this point. And it's like, really wasn't punctuated that effectively. So wasn't offensive, but nothing stood out, so I gave it 4 out of 10 as well. All right, let's move on to animation and visuals, Liam. Animation and visuals, we talked about it last week, switching over to this. Since the animation style is so different, it's really hard to talk about consistencies, and because it's more streamlined. But there were a couple things in here that we pointed out as we were watching it. There's a scene where Turpin and Sawyer are driving in between. They're driving from some place to some other place. I forget. And it's a straight on scene, and it looked like to me like it reminded me of something done in MS Paint. I was just like, this is bizarre. This doesn't look right. And I don't know if there were things. There's a scene a couple minutes later where it's an up close shot of Superman's face, and it's the first time in the episode we see. They give Superman's eyes they show the whites of his eyes, which the character design itself for whatever reason, they chose not to give him white eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, like, jarring. All of a sudden, it's like, who's that? Oh, that's Superman. Why can all of a sudden can I see the whites of his eyes? Like, that's bizarre. So just a few inconsistencies. I feel like, I think that the scene with the train... the SkyTrain, another SkyTrain accident, by the way.
Yes.
Might have to switch from hashtag Cape movement to hashtag train movement.
Accidents? Hashtag train accidents?
I don't know.
Something here. We'll workshop it. We'll get back to you.
A lot of plot device here. The major plot device is the train, the Metropolis SkyTrain. But it was cool to see them use some of those weapons in that way, picking up the train. And
that's, you can really tell in the weapon designs, and certainly when we get later into some of the Apokolips, like Apokolips Now, and you can tell. I mean, it's not a secret. I think if you're listening to this podcast, you know how much Bruce Timm and all those guys, Dan Reba, all those guys idolized Jack Kirby and really wanted to sort of be faithful to his style.
Heck, they even made Dan Turpin, his character design is Jack Kirby.
Yes,
like they
absolutely.
did that on purpose. A little tidbit trivia there for you.
Yes, absolutely. So all the designs are cool. There's these weird energy gloves that create giant hands that Superman fights, and then at one point when he's making his comeback, he breaks the energy fingers, which causes the guy's fingers to break.
That was brutal. We remarked that was surprising that they would show that this guy's hands are mangled.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. You expect, like, they'll show the energy fingers cracking and then just cut away. But no, they show the guy's actual fingers all...
just mangled.
Mangled.
That guy's not holding
to
anything.
Shreds. Yeah, that guy's...
He's going to be drinking
able to hold
a
a fork.
Yep.
He can't do anything. But I liked that. I liked a lot of the weapons. I liked the design of Mannheim. I thought that's...
Yeah, he looks very Clark Gable, like, 1940s movie star actor, gangster type.
Yeah, and again, we get a little bit of Apokolips, not as much as we will going forward when we get to our second episode, but... So yeah, overall, I give visuals a 7 out of 10. I thought it was pretty strong. I thought that was the strength of the episode. We get a little bit more Superman fighting at night, which we don't really get to see.
Yeah, we did remark that as well.
When he goes to the compound at the end to save Turpin and is accosted by a thug that happens to look a lot like Professor Hamilton.
We did remark that. It was a very odd choice.
Like, I don't know, maybe Star Labs doesn't pay well. And
he has to moonlight, you know?
Right.
That wouldn't surprise me. That's where he gets his funding from, I guess. I don't know. I gave animation visuals 6 out of 10. I think I remarked it would have been cool to see some more of Apokolips in this episode. I know we'll see more of it later on, and certainly even in further DCAU episodes, whether it's in Justice League or Justice League Unlimited. But exploring Apokolips, so you get a couple shots of the inside of Darkseid's compound at the very, very end, and Mannheim when he's following Kanto. There was a great line, by the way, in that's what we'll talk about in a second with voice acting. But that final scene in and of itself reminds me of what it could be a post-credit scene tease at this point. Like, you have the very end of it. He disappears into the boom tube. And then, Turpin says, oh, he's out of our jurisdiction now. And then they cut to Apokolips, and he's there. And you don't get to see Darkseid till the very, very end. And he's just so, like, powerful and looming. And you're just like, oh, this is awesome. And he just alludes to how, that there's more to come. And it's great.
Absolutely.
That in and of itself kind of gave it a little bump for me. But nothing outstanding in this episode, I didn't think. No crazy... awesome visuals, so 6 out of 10 was my score for that. So speaking of voice acting, let's go to well, actually, since I just alluded to that, I might as well say I gave it a plus, an extra bonus point for that closing scene, just because it's such a great tease. It leaves you wanting, like, I can imagine if I was watching these episodes in order, we realize, as we're going to talk about in the next episode, that storyline isn't paid off till middle of the next season almost.
Yeah.
You know, you get almost 16, 17 episodes to the next episode, which is Father's Day, and then that episode isn't paid off until another 15 or 16 episodes probably later, or 13 episodes later. So you have, a great length of time in between this, a good slow build, I guess, if you were to use wrestling terms.
Yeah.
the slow build.
Slow burn. Yeah, absolutely. They do a pretty good job there, and as you mentioned, I think the perfect analogy is what you said. It very much feels like a post-credit scene that you would see in any number of superhero movies that are around these days.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move to voice acting now, our final category of the day. Voice acting, I thought it was fine, and we'll get to some of the characters and the names and stuff like that. I love it. Liam's always our guy that does the research on all the voice actors and stuff, always has those ready. But Kanto, who's Kanto played by?
Kanto's played by Michael York. She's a character actor, has done some other voice acting work, and again, very solid. Again, we talked about how he's very much a sort of a Satan or demon archetype in the way that he appears. A gentleman businessman who's offering power to these desperate people.
But he has a hint of slime to him. You can tell he's not being upfront about everything, and has ulterior motives. The character design in and of itself is actually pretty good too. You mentioned his, he's just kind of looks sleazy, but has a business suit, so he kind of has that conflicting feeling about him, but his voice I thought was great for what he was asked. Mannheim is fine. He plays that villain role well, and we get a very tiny bit of Michael Ironside as Darkseid at the end, who is just he's the perfect voice for that character.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Darkseid hasn't made a ton of appearances in other media. He was in some of the old Super Friends cartoons where he had a weird obsession with wanting to marry Wonder Woman. I don't know.
Maybe we'll have to do a spin-off episode of one of those one time.
I forget which version. I think that was in what they had so many different versions.
DC Superpowers.
Yeah, that might have been that one, or that might have been like the Galaxy Guardians version or whatever it was called. But there's a lot of different Super Friends, but yeah, whatever the season was that Darkseid was the main villain, he just was always trying to marry Wonder Woman. I don't know, man.
He just loves her. Okay. I mean, who doesn't? Sure. But Michael Ironside, tremendous. We did notice that he has a weird vocal effect, it seems, which I remember at some point. I don't know if it's later on when they do the invasion episode, but they stop using the effect, and it's a little jarring because it's like, is that the same voice? Did they change his voice up? And I think some of it is supposed to invoke when they're on Apokolips, kind of an echoey feeling, and it's very empty and cold. But it does seem like they deepen his voice maybe a little bit, which is weird because he has a very deep voice as it is.
So. Yeah, anyone that's watched Michael Ironside in anything is he's got a pretty commanding deep voice anyway. But yeah, there's definitely some sort of artificial effect put on it. But
so my one complaint for voices in this episode is Dan Turpin and Maggie Sawyer.
Okay.
We talked about before we started recording, but Maggie Sawyer reminds me a little bit of a character from BoJack Horseman in that Princess Carolyn and the way that she delivers lines. And Princess Carolyn, don't get me wrong, and BoJack is great.
Absolutely.
She's hilarious. The way that is it Amy Sedaris that does her voice, is the way she delivers every line is almost exactly the same, but that makes it hilarious. I don't want to hear Amy Sedaris type delivery from my person that's supposed to be this rough, tough, police chief. Yeah, she's supposed to be this tough, grizzled, also happens to be a lesbian police chief, which is fine, but she comes across as just kind of, I don't know, there's a line where they talk about, if I had $1 for every time that Turpin handed in his badge, I would have more money than Rex Luthor. And part of it is that line is really bad.
Yeah.
But the way in which she delivers it isn't great either.
And I guess we'll get to see as we go forward. This is certainly not our last episode focusing on these characters or focusing on episodes that have these characters in it. Both are around in, say, something like World's Finest, which we'll be getting to eventually, and
sure.
And obviously these guys are all throughout the series, so it could be a case of yes, a little bit over the top delivery combined with not the strongest dialogue in the world. So it'll be interesting to see as we go forward if they're able to redeem themselves. It's Joseph Bologna as Turpin and
Joey
Baloney, which I don't know if that's offensive or not, but and Joanna Cassidy plays Maggie Sawyer. But so it'll be interesting. I think that's something we're gonna have to file under the we'll see for future episodes is whether or not if it was specifically the plot or if maybe sort of like Perry White we mentioned with George Dunst's performance. It's just sort of a one-note performance because that's what they wanted.
Right. Yeah, it's hard.
So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, for this episode, I gave voice acting a 6 out of 10.
And I gave it a 5.
Yeah, so we're pretty much on the same page as usual.
As usual, go figure.
Like I said, we've talked about it off the air. There are maybe a couple episodes coming up that we will actually have hardcore disagreements about.
Absolutely.
But for now, yes, we pretty much agree there. It's nothing really inoffensive, but nothing stands out as great.
So my final score is 22 out of 40 for this episode, and that includes my bonus point for the post-credit scene. And yours is 20 out of 40?
Yes, sir.
So, these are fine. This is definitely our lowest score so far for a Superman episode. But, maybe these episodes are coming back to Earth. I think we know what's coming ahead with the Apokolips episodes, and those episodes are great. And we're also looking at some other episodes that we'll be reviewing in the next couple weeks that I'm really excited about at doing some of the classic Superman episodes that I really haven't seen in several years. But so let's pivot. We'll go to our next episode now, Liam. Our second episode in this Road to Apokolips episode is Father's Day, which as I mentioned, was not until the following season, technically, that they introduced this episode. So you have a long layoff of these Fourth World characters, the New Gods, the guys from Apokolips. By the way, neglected to mention that line about where in the final scene where Mannheim gets to Apokolips from Tools of the Trade, and he asks him, he says, "Where in God's name are we?"
Where in God's name are we?
That depends. Which God are you talking about?
Listen, buddy, I'm through with these games. I want some answers. You're going to tell me who you work for?
Welcome to Apokolips, Mr. Mannheim.
Who are you?
Your new lord and master. You may call me Darkseid.
Oh, great, man. So good. Anyway, sorry. Back to Father's Day. So Father's Day, we'll jump right into plot. I gave plot 5 out of 10 just because it's a pretty generic Superman story. Not as generic as Superman fights giant robot or Superman fights giant gorilla or
Giant rock monster.
Superman fights giant rock monster or any of those stories that are, other episodes. But it is kind of a generic episode that takes place during the daytime. Again, all of Metropolis's crimes take place during the daytime. But it's pretty much a Superman punches this new character Kalibak, who we learn is Darkseid's son, who is attempting to prove, after being manipulated by another person that lives on Apokolips, this kind of creepy hooded wearing guy, Darkseid, into proving his worthiness. He feels unworthy or that he is unaccepted, which he is unaccepted.
Yes,
very clearly
Darkseid
unaccepted.
Makes it very clear
He's son by birth only.
Right. He mentions that him being his son is a quote-unquote technicality
of birth or something like that.
As far as Destiny and I are concerned, I have no son, is what he said. Which obviously is, again, a little, you can hint as you go forward into Apokolips Now, and you learn about the stuff with Highfather and Orion and some of that. The trading of children to end the war and all that very weird, deep stuff Kirby was just doing whatever he wanted.
It's probably I haven't done a whole lot of research about Jack Kirby's life, but there's got to be something in his life where he felt like maybe that was when he left Marvel for DC or something like that. Yeah. He decided it was going to be trading of sons or something. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah,
super weird. Anyway, but so you have Kalibak, and his motivation is he's trying to prove, after he's been manipulated by this episode's satanic character, Darkseid. If you do this, you'll prove your worth to Darkseid and he'll love you.
And it's worth mentioning that Darkseid's motivation for sending Kalibak is to make up for the fact that at the start of the episode, Darkseid sends what is essentially looks like a mini Death Star to Earth to fight Superman, and Superman breaks it in 2 minutes.
Well, and he breaks it, and then Darkseid's abort mission, immediately. This isn't working, and we don't want him finding out anything else about us, even though Darkseid shows up on Earth at the end of the episode.
And it is sort of mentioned that because Darkseid tries to frame it as, this was just a fact-finding mission, and Darkseid says, no, that was supposed to be your ultimate Superman-destroying weapon, and he just took it apart in 2 minutes.
Right.
So Darkseid trying to get the heat off of himself, and in the sense that if Kalibak succeeds, he'll take credit for it.
Right.
And if Kalibak fails, as he does, he is able to immediately, and he does in the episode when Darkseid confronts Darkseid about it, immediately says, I was just coming to tell you he disobeyed you. I don't know why you would do that.
He throws him firmly under the Apokolips bus, And
there's not really a comeuppance for Darkseid here.
No,
he's
you get that Darkseid really doesn't believe him,
right?
But ultimately, he has just such a disdain for Kalibak that he just lets.
He'd rather take it out on the guy he really hates than the guy he already knows is kind of a snake and a worm.
Right. Exactly. So we have this weird dynamic. Kalibak comes to Earth and he's going to kill Superman, and it's really a lot of punching. It's like punching for what seems like 95% of the episode.
Yeah.
And they change venues a little bit.
Yes.
It goes from a Greek restaurant to the subway, back to the surface, back to the Greek restaurant.
There's a Kalibak ends up in a china shop at one point. He screams and breaks all the glass, and
then they end up in a park.
Yes, and then it ends in a nice, beautiful park.
On a beautiful sunny day.
Yes, that is. Yes, so for plot, I went 4 out of 10. Not the strongest plot, as you mentioned. It's a lot of Superman punching the bad guy. The underlying plot is that his parents have come to visit for Father's Day, and they're very stupid.
They're so dumb.
Stupid.
We now know where Superman, later on in the episode of Justice League Unlimited, Justice League, where the Christmas episode where Superman believes that Santa exists, we see now why, because Pa Kent is one big dummy. He decides Kalibak shows up and has destroyed half the restaurant. He goes, somebody needs to show that guy a lesson. So he runs back into the restaurant as if he himself were Superman.
And immediately has rubble just fall on him.
Serves him right. And then later, Ma Kent exclaims, "Clark, be careful!" next to Lois.
Lois, who also is apparently pretty dumb because she doesn't immediately put together why.
Right, 2 and 2.
Right.
And then Pa Kent, at the end, Lois says, no matter how many times I see that, I'll never grow tired of it. And Pa Kent, who apparently has never been to Metropolis before, goes, me either!
So the overall stupidity of the Kents, and as you said, the sort of baseline basicness of the plot, I went 4 out of 10. Nothing, it's not super offensive, it all, I guess, sort of makes sense to an extent, and Pa Kent's motivation notwithstanding, but, and then, again, the meat of it is again, the appetizer you get for, when Superman finally confronts Darkseid at the end of the episode, and they finally have a conversation. And
it's not much of a conversation because Darkseid says one thing, which is super badass.
Right.
By the way,
we'll get to that in voice acting.
Super badass. But,
So that's about it for plot. It's pretty, like I said, pretty basic, not super offensive, and Mom Pa Kent don't understand how computers work, and are also very dumb.
Dumb.
How they haven't accidentally... The idea that these people kept an alien baby a secret and a spaceship a secret for 23 years, or however old Superman is when he finally leaves Metropolis.
It's a little
I find that
absurd
preposterous at this point.
A little absurd. I gave it 5 out of 10, by the way. Of course, we're right along the same lines. So let's move on to music. Music, I feel like you liked music a little bit more in this episode. It's different. There are some beats, a different beat to it than normal, especially in the opening scene with the mini Death Star and Lois going for a jog through the park. It does have a different feel. It wasn't a straight up Superman soundtrack feel, but I don't necessarily think that it worked. Like it was different. It was different, and it added something that was noticeable, and I don't think it was bad, but I don't think I just didn't get that it fit. Like we have episodes, it's hard when you're comparing this to Batman the Animated Series, but you have episodes that we've done, The Last Laugh, for example, where that music fits. Like that works in that episode. We talked about how great that episode is because of that music alone. And this is different, but
one thing I would say is also different is that not every Superman villain has like that really iconic theme.
Yep.
Like when the Joker comes on screen, that theme. When Two-Face comes on screen, like Poison Ivy, they all have a certain theme that plays when they appear for the first time in the episode. And there really isn't that. There was for Metallo. We mentioned that in our last episode.
Luthor has a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So for certain guys there are. For the more regularly occurring. But
you would think that Darkseid would get a theme.
Yeah, but it's not anything memorable if it is supposed to be specific for Darkseid. So again, maybe we'll see that going forward when we get to Apokolips Now. But yeah, I thought that was noticeable. Like I said, I kind of liked the difference in music. It's a little more of a rock soundtrack than you would traditionally hear in Superman. We obviously got a lot more of that when we got into Batman Beyond and Justice League Unlimited. You started hearing a lot of electric guitars and stuff. But for this point in the DCAU, there was not a lot of rock and roll. Certainly, there's the Lobo episode, which we'll get to down the line, that has it's almost exclusively electric guitar music. I'm pretty sure, but. So I liked it being a little different. I went 6 out of 10. Not a great difference, but I guess I'm leaning more towards the difference being positive than negative for me.
Gotcha. I went with a 4 out of 10 just for those reasons. Like it was different, but I don't think it worked. It worked the way that it could have or should have. So yeah, that's all we need to say about that. Let's move on to animation and visuals. As I said already, I think that this could have been, I don't know, because it's so much hand-to-hand combat heavy.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of time spent on Apokolips, but it's really just one room with a giant TV screen. Although they do show a little bit of like the pits where the slaves work to make the fires of Apokolips burn, I guess,
yes.
when Mannheim gets thrown down there.
But I mean, that might just me be showing my ignorance as a gap of knowledge in my comic fandom. Right. But it's like, has there ever really been explained why they need those giant ass fire pits all over Apokolips?
Nope. Dude, what is their number one export?
And like they also want and he also that's one of the things he wants to make Earth. He wants to make fire pits on Earth. So
why?
Is that just like an aesthetic that he likes? Like he's just like he likes
a big fire guy.
Yeah. That's his interior design, exterior design, perhaps.
Yes.
Showing through, that's just what he likes.
He prefers big fire pits all over the place.
That are visible from space.
I would like to know, what is Apokolips' number one export? What do they export? What are they creating down there?
Slavery and fire?
Perhaps. Made in Apokolips. Fire from Apokolips. That's how you know it's good.
Slaves.
That's how you know it's good. Oh, gosh. That's going to be
all right. Yeah, I went 5 out of 10 for visuals as we try to dig ourselves out of this weird hole.
Yes, very strange hole. I went 4 out of 10. I think it's fine, but I just expected more, and I don't think it's very goofy that he's defeated by, and I guess it could go back to plot, but the fact that initially Kalibak is defeated by accidentally stepping on the third rail of a subway train. Yeah. Like, Superman didn't do anything other than that. And then there's the weird, like you said, he's in a china shop and screaming. Why?
He's having a flashback to Darkseid telling him he's a disappointment or something. And
we're supposed to emotionally... it's weird. I feel like we're supposed to almost emotionally connect with Kalibak as a sad character in this.
A little bit like that all he would ever want...
is approval.
Is for Dad to say, "Good job, son," and he'll never ever get that.
Right, but he's a bad guy.
No,
he's killing people.
Yes, he's
so
a
how am I
murderer
supposed
and a
to
slave driver and a warlord and all these other?
I don't
want to
have conflicting feelings about whether or not I should feel sad for Kalibak or not. Though.
Yeah,
that's why I'm like,
that's a good point. I think that's fair.
Like, you do that with Batman. Like, you can do that with Batman. Yeah, we want Batman, why didn't you save us, son? Like,
right.
That...
Right. If you compare that to, like, Two-Face, who was a good man who was brought down by his own mental issues.
Right.
And, dealings with the criminal, because he spat in the face of the criminal underbelly, and they fought back. Yeah, that's a tragedy, the tragedy of that character. Comparing that to Apokolips, who's just a bad guy who also happens to have daddy issues, is not...
Right.
Doesn't necessarily... Yeah, you don't necessarily
And Superman
feel
even
sorry
tries
for him.
to appeal to his... I guess he's not human, but to instill humanity in him by talking about innocent people. And he does it twice within a period of, 30 seconds. And he's like... He scoffs at it. There's no innocent people. Oh, is that more of your innocent people in that train? So I don't feel bad for you because you have a dad that... hates you.
Yes.
And I don't want to feel bad for you.
I mean, you can look at that again as the tragedy of, well, he was supposed to be a new god, theoretically, and
right.
He, that's like he was indoctrinated as a child to be this way, but
right. Yeah,
in the way of he had no choice. It was this, or he would have been killed. Like, there's a way to do that, but you can't get into that in 22 minutes,
right.
Especially when 98% of the episode is him and Superman punching each
right.
other.
And maybe you could have spent less time with the two of them fighting each other and more working on that dynamic. But it's also a children's cartoon,
right?
It's played on Saturday morning, so punch more.
Yes. So that's. Yeah.
I gave it 4 out of 10 for animation and visuals.
Yeah, I think I mentioned already, but I gave 5 out of 10. It's, again, nothing super offensive, but there isn't a ton that stands out besides, as we mentioned, sort of Darkseid's overall demeanor and some of the little tastes of Apokolips we get, but certainly not the whole. It's not the whole platter yet, so to speak.
Absolutely. All right, last wrapping up this episode of Father's Day, we'll go to voice acting. Liam, it looks like... so let's hear your thoughts on this episode. We didn't have too many new characters. We did have one, by the way. Shout out to special guest that you pointed out, for the guy from the Laughing Fish, who happened to be the
maitre d' at the Greek restaurant is at 100% is the same character design as the copyright clerk or whatever from the Laughing Fish episode that Joker harasses.
Crazy.
I think it's supposed to be the same person. I don't know why they did that, but it was a funny little cameo.
There was. But voice acting, anyway.
Yes,
back to the actual voice acting.
Yeah, voice acting I liked for the most part in this episode. I gave 7 out of 10 here. Obviously, Michael Ironside as Darkseid, as you mentioned in the first episode, is fantastic. He has such a way of communicating. It's not the over the top villainy that you get with
super subtle,
right? Comparing him to, say, Malcolm McDowell as Metallo,
yep.
Who is prone to monologuing and puns and
very, like you said, Shakespearean state, very Broadway.
And I will say, I think why that works is when you have performances by Robert Morse as Darkseid or Michael Dorn as Kalibak, who are a bit more over the top and who are very theatrical. Having that base and that anchor of Ironside as the sort of stoic, this is just how it's going to be because I have willed it this way. I think that works, and so that sort of style of performance complements each other. And I also thought Tim Daly did a above average job here for his Superman. Especially, I thought I was really struck at the end when Darkseid vaporizes or teleports Kalibak away. Superman's concerned about this guy who just almost killed his dad. There's a lot where I thought that was a really nice little Superman moment, and Superman being very matter of fact, and he's getting a little angry, and he's demanding Darkseid answer him, which is when Darkseid hits him with the Omega beams and says, "That is who I am."
Right.
Which is a pretty great line.
Yeah, and it's delivered well. The whole character of Darkseid itself, and it doesn't obviously fit necessarily into voice acting, but I guess in a way it does. Michael Ironside, because he's so subtle, the character itself, we talked about the way that he stands. He's not in fight mode. He's sitting like he's relaxed. He's confident in his power. Mm-hmm. He's confident knowing that He doesn't have to break a sweat almost. You mentioned you see a little bit of a grimace when Superman begins to fight back against the Omega beams.
Yeah.
In that final scene, but he a little grimace. He doesn't even change his stance. He gives a little bit of a facial reaction and just intensifies the Omega beams a little bit and doesn't break a sweat. And then just doesn't even bother looking back at Superman at that point. Knows that there's no way he's flying after him. So that confidence that he has definitely is communicated through Ironside's portrayal of Darkseid.
Yeah, and that's struck when you get into later episodes, and certainly in Twilight and Justice League, where they really have a big knockdown, drag out fist fight. You can that's so the offset of Darkseid's not really a guy who's gotten his hands dirty in the last 1,000 years or whatever,
right.
But this Kryptonian shows up, and now he's not necessarily the baddest dude on the block anymore. So
right.
I think that the dynamic between Superman and Darkseid as your pillars for good and evil here in this universe are really strong there, and a lot of that is, as you mentioned, not just voice acting. A lot of that is the visual interpretation of him. But I think Michael Ironside, of course, as Darkseid, is really a huge part of that.
Absolutely. So my score for voice acting was 6 out of 10 for that. Kalibak I thought was Kalibak and Desaad are fine. Little cartoony, but I think that Michael Ironside really steals the show here, and I think you're right. I think Tim Daly's really came into his own at this point. This is technically his second season, but he's found his footing. The Kents are a little distracting, but we could talk about that all day.
Yeah, that's like I said. Again, it's similar to the Perry White that I mentioned earlier. I don't want to throw George Dunst under the bus too much because he's great as Scarface later on in Batman, but. But as Perry White, basically every line he delivers is the same sort of monotone shouting.
Right.
And that's kind of the way Pa Kent delivers all his lines is pretty similar, whether he's about to confront an alien madman or he's just chatting about computers. He's kind of delivers everything the same way.
Agreed.
So my final score is a 22 out of 40, gave voice acting 7 out of 10, if I didn't mention that.
Yep.
And one last little DC trivia note. Michael Dorn, who plays Kalibak, also was the voice of Prometheus before he was unmasked in Arrow. So
there we go.
I like throwing in little
crossing over here
little trivia notes
to the Arrowverse.
I don't know. I guess we don't. There's not really a lot of animated Arrowverse projects. There's like that 10-minute Vixen shorts they did,
and they're doing a Constantine show too, right?
That's true. And they did the Ray stuff spinning out of the Earth X crossover. So maybe one day we'll do an Elseworlds on the Arrowverse.
There we go.
But there's where there are.
We're doing Darkseid and Wonder Woman's wedding first, though. So
absolutely,
that doesn't jump the line.
I was gonna say Elseworlds will be Darkseid. Super Friends Darkseid for sure.
Sounds good. All right, my final score for this episode of Father's Day was 19 out of 40. So definitely our lowest scores thus far for these two episodes for Superman. They're not terrible episodes. They're good appetizers, if you will, for the upcoming Apokolips episodes that we're hopefully will be covering in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and that's sometimes the pluses of these only being 22 minutes is if sometimes there are whole movies done now in whole superhero movies done as prologues for other movies. So the idea that at least this was 22 minutes, and so that little teases at the end are enough to kind of keep you excited, and you don't feel like, oh, I just invested 2 hours in what was a commercial for the next movie,
and now I have to wait a year and a half
right.
for that. Like these are already out.
Right. So that's the strength of the 22-minute time frame. I think
that's a good point. That's a very good point. All right, so with that, we're going to wrap this episode up. Thank you guys for listening to episode 13, Road to Apokolips. If you have any feedback at all, give us your thoughts on these two episodes. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on Michael Ironside's portrayal of Darkseid? How do you guys feel about these episodes? Do you feel like they're introducing these characters in a way that is interesting? Do you feel like they should have done it differently? Give us some feedback. Shoot Liam some feedback over at DCAU Review on Twitter. If you're on the Facebook and you prefer to communicate that way, you can send us a message on there. We're at DCAU Review. You can find us on there. You can also comment on the Facebook page as well. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a 5-star feedback on iTunes, if you will. It helps our podcast rankings go up, helps us out extremely. We appreciate those that have already done so and continue to do so. If you like us, also tell your friends about us, because we'd love, if they're nerds, let them know that we're nerds too, and it's all good. We don't judge. Liam, anything to add?
Yeah, just as we're recording this, so we're finding out more about the DC streaming service coming out soon.
Oh, yes.
We already know Static Shock's going to be on there, which will be helpful for us as we, again, look into some of these DCAU crossovers and certain things like that. So we've got it's an exciting time to be a fan of DCAU. We hear rumors about reboots or reunions of Justice League or Batman, so it's an exciting time. Love tweeting with people about it. Love any discussion we can have about this stuff. Got some nice feedback and tweets about our first Superman episode, and really enjoy interacting with everybody there. So,
absolutely. With that said, I'm Cal,
and I'm Liam,
and we will talk to you on the next episode.
Bye bye.